Hey everybody, Mac the Monster, back with Marvel Heroes, and back with the Winter Soldier. And I do got a build for him. And he doesn't have too many notable aliases or anything, so this is the Winter Soldier build. And going right to it, this is going to be a ranged build. It is a hybrid because we will be using knife throw, but we'll just be using it to sometimes get the expanded arsenals. Damage rating 588 to firearm powers for 8 seconds when you hit with a brutal combatant power. So it's not necessarily a must to do unless you're fighting a boss. That's really when it's primarily going to be when you want to do it. So the build, it's going to be 20 points into concealed combat. This is going to give us a big chunk of defense and dodge rating. You're going to need it. He's very, very, very squishy. I mean, he's squishy beyond squishy. 20 points into magnetic disc mine. That's his signature. That's going to give us every 20 seconds a nice big hit that will take out blues and yellows while we're moving through to the boss and do some extra damage to the boss and deal with some extra adds. Because we don't have a lot of AoE and we don't have substantial AoE. So when dealing with a boss, we don't want to sit there and have to deal with the next skill, 20 points into suppressing fire. I mean, hitting the boss with that would just take forever to wither him away. As you can see, it's only 11,500 damage twice per second. It's good enough to deal with trash, but it won't be good enough to deal with bosses. We're going to do 20 points into withering fire. This will help tear down a boss. It does decent damage. It gives us a good buff, and really it's going to support the damage that's being done by 3-round burst. Most of the damage is going to be coming from 3-round burst. The reason being is because with the buff that we're getting from enhanced arsenal, we get the armor piercing round, which is 10% extra damage, critical hit chance, and brutal strike chance per consecutive shot. So the third shot is actually 30% extra damage, 30% extra crit chance, and 30% extra brutal strike chance. A lot of extra damage coming off of this. This is where it's going to be killer. This is first hit, first damage though. So if the boss is spawning a lot of enemies, there's not a lot of AoE when dealing with a boss. Aside from magnetic disc mine, so you might have to switch over to suppression fire to take out the trash and then deal 3-round bursts. DPS wise, not so much solo. This is another group-based character. 20 points into relentless pursuit. That's going to give us damage rating, critical hit chance, critical damage rating, and then damage rating against enemies not targeting you. Again, very good for us in general, but awesome if you were grouped and not getting targeted. And then finally, you're going to put 1 point into double time, and that will give you a fast movement skill, and the rest of your points should go into knife throw. And knife throw will give you the buff off of expanded arsenal, giving you extra DPS through firearms. So in a raid situation, this is going to give you pretty good DPS. You wouldn't need suppressing fire. You'd probably go with unseen death to get that extra damage with the execute. But for an everyday use, you're going to need some kind of AoE to deal with trash. Otherwise, you're going to be 3-round bursting every single thing to death with withering fire, and that's just going to take you forever to clear trash. Now, he is squishy like no other character I've seen before. I mean, he makes Star-Lord look like a tank. So you got to be extra careful with where you're standing and what you're doing. You're going to be moving around while soloing very much. While leveling, he is extremely spirit deprived, so when you're leveling, use pistol takedown instead of 3-round burst, at least until you can get River of the Soul. River of the Soul will help shed off some of that problem, but it really doesn't do much until you get a match super arrowhead. Super heroic, regular. You need some kind of extra spirit. So that's going to get us into gearing. I have his costume, which is all health. It's got damage rating to ranged attacks, seeing how this is going to be an all-ranged build. It's got ranged area, ranged area, and then his ultimate is ranged area. So he also has a 3-to-1 core, which is 3,000 hit points and 100 spirit when you use a med kit. That's going to be kind of mandatory to have that 100 spirit on there. Now, I have his Winter Soldier's Visage, which gives 2,000 defense almost, which is going to be mandatory. I have it buffed with 50 damage to ranged attacks from the Enchanter. I got 1,900 health on it, 490 crit rating, 780 crit damage rating, -7 power, 7% spirit cost, 3% base damage versus bosses. When you land a brutal strike, you gain 380 damage rating versus vulnerable targets for 6 seconds, +2 to all powers. And that's really all on this that affects us. The first 3 don't really affect us, so it's possible that Cosmics could replace these. This has got 2,000 defense on it as well. These are nice for the defense, I'll say that. This has got 226 physical damage rating on it. We're all physical damage, by the way. So 1,550 health, that's nice. 211 crit rating is nice. 178 brutal strike rating is nice. +1 speed, that doesn't really care. This has a buff when you use a stealth power. That doesn't affect us. +2 to all powers, +1 to withering fire, +2 to relentless pursuit. And that's really all that. Oh, +4 to concealed combat. That's all that really affects us on that. Original Sin Space Armor. This has 1,750 defense. It's still pretty nice with the defense. 2,000 health. That's pretty nice. 345 brutal strike rating. 789 brutal strike damage. When you gain a brutal strike, you gain 1 durability and 1 strength for 8 seconds. That's actually pretty nice. +6 to all Winter Soldiers' brutal strike combatants power. That's going to buff the knife a little bit. And that's really all that affects us. That's what I mean. That's really not too good for the ranged build. Bucky's World War II uniform. This has got 3,000 defense rating and 477 physical defense. Slots 4, 3, and 2 are all buffed with defense, by the way. So this is a big chunk of defense. Useful in itself just for the defense. 2,270 health, 56 spirit, very good for those 2 things right there. 9.3% projectile deflection. When you critically hit, regenerate 100 health, 116 dodge. When you hit with a range power, gain 586 range damage rating and 2% chance to avoid ranged attacks for 5 seconds. Very nice. +1 to all powers. And then +3 to all Winter Soldier's living weapon powers. So that's actually pretty useful. And then the Kazur Sniper Rifle. This is 818 damage rating, 376 damage rating to range powers, 9.4 attack speed, 564 critical damage rating, 501 brutal damage rating, +1 fighting. When you land a critical, your next 10 ranged attacks gain 397 damage rating on a 10-second cooldown. You'll always burn that off. +6 ranks to all Winter Soldiers' firearm powers, +1 to knife throw, and +5 to 3-round burst. That's just awesome for us. Seeing how we're all physical, Savage Acts of Ares, I mean, that's just going to tie in very well with the crit and brutal damage. It's going to be very nice. I did a defensive Uru because he's squishy. Even with all this defense, he doesn't sound it, but he just doesn't take damage well. And you need River of the Soul, I say. The spirit issues on him is just immense. I got Insignia of Quake, so when you hit with a power, you and your allies gain 383 area damage rating for 8 seconds. A lot of the attacks are area. And also there's a 3% chance to knock enemies in the area down, dealing 4,000 damage. More importantly, this had 1,300 health on it, and a 10% chance to slow the enemy when I hit for 5 seconds, a little bit of CC. I have a 750 health, 40 spirit, 184 damage rating to range power, 144 crit rating cosmic ring. I have Herbie pet here that's +3 strength, which works well with physical powers, but I'm trying to level it, which is why I'm wearing it, so I need cosmic and epic on that. I'm using Relic of Lemuria, primarily because I don't want to use any of my other relics. I don't want to unstack them. You can obviously do range damage. Now, to really get the damage going and keep the spirit up, a Hand of Nimrod is awesome because you recover 3.2 spirit when you hit, 3% chance when you're attacked to blast enemies with 11,000 energy damage, but it's also 295 damage rating to range powers and 6.7 attack speed. Couple that with a super heroic Matt's arrowhead, that's going to give you 15.6 spirit when you deal damage with any bleed power or bleed effect. That actually works, believe it or not, with the knife, and it works with suppressing fire. The knife works as a bleed because we're using the enhanced arsenal effect, which is the ranged buff, and the suppressing fire does damage over time. It's weird how that happens, but it definitely works. I tested it. So that will keep your spirit going. And then I use a Magneto was right t-shirt because that buffs 400 damage to range powers, 122 crit rating, 249 damage rating, 109 brutal strike rating. You take less damage from mental powers and 5% projectile deflection. And then we're all physical damage, so an advanced Crimson Crystal of Sideric is very nice. 526 physical damage rating, 1,000 health, and 2% chance to become invulnerable for 4 seconds when you hit. And then I used a Dr. Octopus medallion. You're welcome to use whatever you want, like a Hood medallion or Green Goblin medallion, Wizard's medallion. That does all ranged. But this buffs all area attacks, so it's going to buff everything that we're using. Magnetic Disc Mine. It's going to buff the suppression fire. It'll buff the shock and awe. And it does it very well. We really need the buff and the suppression fire to help really control the trash. And it gives us a bigger, wider swath with those area attacks. Gives us more crit rating. Gives us damage rating, and it's giving me +2 to all powers. So we'll go ahead and kill Dr. Octopus. Now, one little bug that I've noticed is when you suppression fire and you click on a target to do 3-round burst, it doesn't always take effect. See? Like that wasn't taking effect, so you have to double click them. Ooh, that's a nice little blow up 5-pack. That's the signature. That's what I mean by it is squishy. It's fun to use. I mean, the sound effects and everything are really good. It's just definitely not my favorite class types. TPS is okay. They had them on the test server a few weeks ago, and they took them off for a week, and they put them back up, and they didn't change anything, which really led to the question of why did you take them down and put them back up. I really felt like they didn't listen to any of the community about the Winter Soldier. They just kind of did what they were going to do, and they didn't care. A lot of complaints. You can tell he's not that popular because, well, there's not 100,000 of them running around. What's going on here? Very buggy. You need a signature to really deal with packs of blues and yellows. Of course, these are fast, so they're going to ignore the snare. If this seems slow, the grenade is actually slower, and it consumes more spirit. It doesn't have the snare. The melee just doesn't have AoE, so it's virtually impossible to deal with packs. You have to basically kill one or two at a time. It's so annoying. Yeah, we got the bounty chest. Oh, that's what we need. A bugged bubble. Look at this bubble, it's all kinds of bugs. So soft. So that's the Winter Soldier. He's definitely doable. It's all about the gear. You gotta have all the gear. If you're asking if you should buy him, if you got nothing else to buy, sure. If you have the extra Eternity Splinters, sure. Otherwise, I would say no, because there's a lot better DPS characters out there that aren't so squishy, that do better DPS in my opinion, that don't require so much gear, much less buggy. It's just the way he is right now. He's definitely released way too early. So, hope it helps. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to everybody later.